Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 141st of Kouryer podcast. Our today's guest is Mr. Sascha May. He's an illustrator, character designer, and also creator of comics from Ludwigsburg, Germany. Now, with that quick introduction out of the way, I want to mention something before we jump into the first question. There's two links in the description down below, actually three links in the contact section. One is his Instagram with the caption for contacts and all that sort of stuff, and the third link is his website, his portfolio, and the second link, which is the important one, is the link to his Etsy shop, which I recommend everyone to go check it out if you needed to, I don't know, buy a gift for someone, or just don't know what to get someone, or just any occasion. You can go buy and support artists that come on the show themselves. I think it's much better to directly support artists than to, I don't know, it's just a wild idea to, I don't know, support big conglomerate companies or something like that, because it means a lot to the artists as well. And so, I highly want to encourage everyone to do that. And let's check it out. Maybe there's something you like, or maybe you can send it to one of your friends later. All right, but enough about that. Let's jump into the first question. Give us a little introduction on how you got into the world of visual arts and design.
I think it's pretty basic. When I was a child, I always drew, and as I got older, I lost it. And at some point, when I was in my, I think, teens, 14, 13, I was more into playing computer, hanging out, later on going to parties, and I didn't draw anymore. And then I recovered it, maybe with a 16, something like that. And it was like in my senior years when I restarted drawing. And I was pretty decent, I would say. I would do like this hour-long cross-hatches of some paprika or flowers, stuff like that. And people were always like, hey, maybe you should do something with this later on as a career. And that's when it kind of clicked. And I thought, hey, maybe that's kind of thing I could do. So I kept on it, but I didn't have a major in my senior classes. So I was more into math and English, and did the drawing on the side. And after school, I wanted to study, and I looked what was going on. So it was like, it's always communication design, which is more focused on the graphic design aspects and less on illustration or art in general. So I tried to apply there anyways, because I didn't want to move too far away. But I didn't make it because I was kind of bad, I would say. So it's very interesting when you have people tell you that you are great at drawing, and then you find other people who draw as well, and they are so much better, and then you get rejected. It was kind of a bummer. So I ended up doing graphic design apprenticeship in a school, because it was easier to get in there. And so I learned all the basics of InDesign and Photoshop, Quark Express, and all the advertisement design, I would say. But I tried to focus on illustration all the time. So we had a drawing teacher who told us that we should draw every day. And that's when I started to kind of draw every day, at least one little doodle or something like that. So that's how I got started. And after that, I wanted to go into an advertisement agency, but it's so hard to get in. And all they have is like, how you call it? You go there for a time, you don't get any money, just for the learning. So I didn't get into the advertisement agencies because I didn't want to do that. So I started studying in Mannheim, another communication design study. And there I really started to focus on illustration. I always had a sketchbook with me. I drew all the time while commuting. I drew people in the train and stuff like that. So that's where it really started and took off, I would say.
All right. And all right, you kind of mentioned and explained a little bit of your background and how you got into it. But I was wondering, when you were in your 70s, 17 years old or 18 years old, those are some important times in everyone's life, when they're thinking about, their future and what they want to become. But how was it for you? Did you know at the time you wanted to become an artist or something, like even the back of your head, or were you going another route completely? Like, how was it for you?
I think I always knew I wanted to do something in that direction, but I wasn't really sure what to do. I always thought I would end up like my dream job, I would say, would be like a character designer in a computer game company. That's what I always thought I would end up in, or I thought was my dream. But it always was something with the arts. So even as a graphic designer, it's kind of creative, and I always try to, when I do graphic design, to put more and more illustration in it. So yeah.
Damn, your last sentence. It's kind of it sounded like a cry for help, that you didn't really want graphic design. You wanted to be more creative and express yourself. Because here's the thing. Most people who are usually like, they want to become artists at first, of course, they have their doubts. They don't know where to start. They don't know if it's like it will be a stable path. So they usually find graphic design. And it was the same thing with me, actually. I was like, this dude just made $500 design or $50 designing a logo. That's interesting. Because financial wise, it seems more tangible, with graphic design. So you go to graphic design, you're like, it's art, it's money. I go there. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be awesome. But then you go there, and as someone who wants to express themselves artistically, you realize that this is kind of soulless. Because it's because if I've said this on the podcast many times before, this kind of analogy. Like if we try to compare art to carpentry, I think like making MDF cabinets is like graphic design.
Yeah.
But like making wood sculptures is like, illustration and all that stuff, and we want to be sculptors, like in that sort of way. Like this is the kind of example I try to give to explain to people how it is. And here's the thing. I've been trash talking graphic design so much in this podcast that I don't think the next person as a graphic designer I invite won't accept. But graphic design is a great field. It's an amazing discipline. But for most people, me included, and that come on the podcast, we usually gravitate towards this kind of stuff because we are passionate about expressing ourselves, expressing our emotions, our feelings. And graphic design is not necessarily like the best medium for that. And that's why we kind of get disappointed. But
I mean that there are totally folks who totally dig graphic design, and they do it so good because they are so top notch on what they're doing, cutting edge design, and they really love just working with basic shapes and putting stuff together and expressing themselves that way. That works as well for them, but it wasn't really my deal, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. And well, speaking of like graphic design and different others type of like creative fields, I want to ask you this: what is your main branch of design that you're focusing on right now? And tell us about your experience from the start of it until now. I mean, of course, in the introduction, I mentioned that you're an illustrator, character designer, and all that. But give us a little bit more in-depth answer here.
It's really like my field of illustration is kind of wide. So I do like everything that comes to me job-wise. So it's having the background of drawing a lot of people commuting to work, stuff like that. Sometimes I draw at the events from companies, so I do like small doodles of the people, and that they get this as a gift to go home with. So that's one part. Then I do like children books work, but that's more like private projects. I have a friend who writes children books, and I illustrate them, and we do this in our free time. And it's like we both work at a company that has to do with people with disabilities. So they have like kindergartens with children with disabilities. So we make children books where the protagonist has some disability, like an arm missing or just one eye and stuff like that. And we make these children books every year, and we give them away for free for children and kindergartens and stuff like that. So that's another branch of my work. Then I have my comic work. That's also personal projects with the same author. He has this story, and I did the first part of the comic as my master thesis. And the second part and third part are still waiting to be done. And I'm trying to graduate more to character design these days. I'm attending different courses. I'm now at Brainstorm School attending a course of Kouryer, awesome artist, great dude. It's about character design for animation. Before that, I had a course with Walter Tope, another awesome character designer from Schoolism. And I want to try this year to focus on character design a bit more and really maybe give it a shot and try to enter the entertainment industry. So I'm trying to put a portfolio together. So yeah, but otherwise it's really open. I do like etiquettes for wine bottles and magazine illustrations, stuff like that.
And a quick fun little fact I need to mention is that you mentioned Kofi Ofuso, right?
Yeah.
He was, I think, the guest on the podcast in, I think, episode 34, if I'm not mistaken.
I have to check it out.
Yeah, he's a super cool, humble dude. Yeah, I really enjoyed
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
to him. Yeah. And especially about illustrations, like there were some other great artists that I think, for anyone who's listening to the podcast or watching who's interested in the same field as our guest today in illustration and character design, let me actually check. Yeah, I really, suggest also Nduka Api. He's episode 97. He's a really great illustrator as well. He's the thing that sticks out the most for me is the colors. And also the other one who has just gorgeous, absolutely colorful, beautiful colors. I think Roxanne Baril Monfet. I'm gonna say the episode. So it's episode 97 and episode. Right here, I'm just scrolling through episode 48, 97, and for Kofi's episode, it was episode 37, Kofi Ofuso.
Nice.
And these 3 episodes, I really recommend everyone to go check him out. And all right, the next question is I always get fun answers out of it, and which is, what was the first art job paycheck you ever got, and what was it for, and how did you feel at the time when you got it? Basically, the first ever money you made out of art.
Actually, I'm not sure I recall it correctly, but I think it was in my teens, maybe 16 or 17, when I had to do... I had a friend and her sister wanted for her baby shower, stuff like that, I don't know, a picture of a male hand holding a freshborn baby. So I did a copy of that photograph, cross-hatching, and it took hours of time. And then when I think of it, it really looked like garbage in my eyes nowadays. But I think that's something I did for maybe 50 euro, stuff like that. That was kind of the first paid job, but more on the private sector. So.
All right. And now speaking of the way you made art, I'm going to ask you this. How does your design process usually go anytime you want to start working on a project? How does a structure of your pipeline look like usually? What steps do you take from the ideation phase to the finished product phase?
I think I normally start with researching, actually. That's something I learned maybe in the last 1 to 2 years. That's very important, to do your research and just collect immense amount of images, put them together on a mood board so that you get a general idea what you want to do, where you want to aim, and that my design in that case is settled in reality and gives it more believability. So that's something I try to force myself to do instead of just taking a pen and starting right away, because that's what I always wanted to do, just start drawing. So I try to combine this. So I make my mood board. Maybe it takes me 1 hour, something like that. And then I start to just make a few copies of the stuff, sketch some, get a feel for it, get feel for details, and then it really depends on what the project is. So I really try to combine the thinking process, making notes, with sketching, and so I even try to most of the time to really start sketching in the sketchbook, because it's way looser and there are mistakes, and that's okay. And I just start the next page and the next sketch before I go digital.
All right. And here's the thing, like, speaking of sketches and, yeah, like, your process, the next question is actually kind of an interesting addition to the podcast format I added, and which is, by any chance, do you have a sketchbook nearby? We could, see some of your sketches. Show us some of your sketches.
Yeah, I have actually. So let's see. I need to find a good page because
It's fine.
not every page is great. So this is my actually sketchbook. So it's filled with comfort sketches, which is mainly heads to shoulders. So these were done while watching The Office lately, rewatching The Office, and some refinement, and I used those to make a little cast of the Office characters. You can find it on my Instagram. So I did like maybe 6 characters. So here, Dwight, for example. So I just really use it to experiment and try to get very, very loose in my sketchbook, to not focus too much on how it looks. It's really for experimenting. That's something I learned from a German illustrator, Felix Scheinberger. He's a great illustrator. He does a lot of loose sketches, a lot of watercolor, has various books about drawing, about keeping a sketchbook. And the thing I realized when I was younger is when you draw in the sketchbook, on the train, when you're commuting, most of the time, if someone's next beside you, it's very awkward to draw because people always tend to look what you're doing and then to comment it and to talk to you. And it's really kind of awkward because normally the sketchbook is a very personal thing. It's like my diary. So there's a lot of notes, a lot of journal stuff I put in there, to-do lists, shopping lists, calculations for projects. So normally nobody would dare to look into your diary and say, oh, that's not good, or that's great, or something like that. So, but it really, the mindset behind it, that it's the sketchbook, something only for you, so that you can go wild, you can go make mistakes, and it doesn't matter if the drawings are good or bad. It's really just to experiment with it and to have a place where you can make mistakes. So some fundamental drawings I'm doing lately. That's all for because I have little problems with dimensionality, so I'm trying to focus more on that these days. And it's very fun to go back to these courses and revisit the fundamentals and to recover all the stuff I missed out on. So it's really great.
Wait a minute. There was like this video, like actually this kind of topic. I don't know if I don't think it's a spectrum or something, but do you know the word aphantasia?
No.
Maybe you have it and you don't know, because, all right, I'm going to explain. Basically, aphantasia is the inability to voluntarily create a mental picture in your head. People with aphantasia are unable to picture a scene, person, or object, even if it's very familiar. Is that the case? I was wondering.
I don't know. I don't think that's the case. I think it's sometimes it's hard to. So I really need some guidelines to get the picture in my head. So. Oftentimes I really need the pen in my hand. I need to work stuff out and to find my way to the final picture. So it's not that I have a clear picture in my mind and I just need to copy it. It really develops on paper.
Yeah, I can totally see that, because recently I think Prokop made a video on his YouTube channel about aphantasia, and there was Anthony Padilla, a famous YouTuber, who interviewed some people with aphantasia. Recently it's been there was some awareness about it, and more than I think a huge amount of people who have aphantasia don't even know they have aphantasia because they think it's the normal thing. And I was just wondering, if that's the case. But yeah, I mean, it must. I can't imagine, it's basically you can't imagine anything in your head. So
it must be very.
Actually, there's a lot of artists who have aphantasia,
okay.
And because the reason I ask, because they did do the same thing. They try to for example, in for design, they draw a lot of basic fundamental shapes to get their like kind of other parts of the brain going, so they can actually work with something, because you can't imagine anything. So, and it's super frustrating.
Yeah, it must be very hard. I don't think I have it. I hope not. So, but it's just really the have been drawing for such a long time now, and you really start to. I can draw pretty loose, so and I still understand what's going on in my drawings. That's fine, but I think at some point I really missed out on some fundamentals, because I didn't actually go to some real art classes or stuff like that. So like getting shapes right, forms, dimensionality, placing these stuff in a 3D room. So it's kind of hard for me. I really like just to draw pretty loose and have no idea what's the outcome. So I start with a nose, and then suddenly there's a head, and there's a crazy dude with an awesome beard, stuff like that. So yeah, that's another way of drawing, just to draw without thinking, really.
All right. And here's the thing, like, I want to ask you something, like, as an illustrator, do you think, like, with right now, recently, in the past couple of years, the animation industry has been really booming? And I mean, of course, you also, I think, worked on animations as well, if I'm not mistaken. And
I haven't really worked on animation, but on animated music clips for some local bands. So
yeah, I thought so. But here's the thing, even as an illustrator and then also an artist, like, with the rise of, like art industry has been the most popular, and like right now it's really good right now, the whole situation in the world for artists, I think, visual artists, more than ever before. And as you know, like, a lot of projects, they, like Netflix, they take the IPs that are even, they prefer to take IPs that are even animated films and movies, instead of like, hiring actors and stuff like that, because it gives you so much more, like, freedom to to make something unique, like in terms of art style, everything. And at the same time, it's kind of like, it's really easy to delegate some of the responsibilities of like the director and the producers and everything to just a group of artists, instead of like, a team of like, makeup artists and, all of that. And a really most like, recent like hit, I think the number one series on Netflix in the world was Arcane. I don't know if you watched it or not.
Yeah.
What I want to ask is, what do you think about this whole thing? Do you think the animation will take over? Not take over, like, what is your opinion on this, basically?
Yeah, I think the times for artists and entertainment industries are just awesome, because even with the pandemic, the way of working has shifted a bit. So everybody, you can work from everywhere. You can use your iPad to do character designs somewhere. So, and it still fits into any pipeline. So that's really, really great. Then with those giants like Netflix, they have so much money and are able to make really, really great animated series, movies, kind of really anything. So that's something that I think it's very important as well. If, for example, it's besides animation, if I look at German films and series, they tend to be kind of boring and really, really lame, because, I don't know, German movies, that's kind of a tradition. They have their way of doing stuff, and it's nothing compared to any Hollywood stuff. So, but there was on Netflix, there was the series Dark, which was a German series, but they had the production value with Netflix with a lot of money, and it suddenly stuck out because it was very well done. It had a great visuals. It was a really, really cool series that was, even it was a German series, it didn't look too German. That was kind of a good thing. So I think with those giants and with the change of consuming entertainment these days, even with Netflix, Amazon Prime, you don't have to go buy DVDs anymore. So everything is so available. You consume much more. So you binge watch series all the time. At least that's something I do next while I'm working or stuff like that. And I think that really had a great impact. And that makes it really easy, or more easy, to experiment, to try different styles. For Arcane, for example, is a really good example. It has such a unique style that it really is something very, very special. They have this courage to draw like kind of ugly characters with all the eye sacs and then the crooked teeth and stuff like that. So it's really very interesting times, actually. And I think there will come a lot more because the sky is the limit. And people are really, they want to watch more. They want to consume those stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And did you like the Arcane yourself as well? Who was your favorite character from the show?
Jinx, totally. Jinx was my favorite character. I like the play with the personality and the craziness and then the childish drawing or when she had her crazy attacks. It was really, really awesome. I totally dig the art style. It was I didn't want to watch it at first because it was so hyped, and I'm always like, oh man, it's just another hype. But it was really, really well done. I like the stories. I really love the characters, and the art style is phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, I totally see what you mean about like not wanting to get into something because of if it's just hype or not. Because usually, a lot of times, it's just garbage, average stuff that gets hyped sometimes. And
Yeah, of course.
I was wondering, like, did you know that? Have you played the League of Legends as well? The video game it was based off of.
I haven't really. I played it once or twice, but it's a bit too fast paced for my understanding. Maybe I'm just too old. I don't know. It was too fast for me.
Yeah, actually, like there's two interesting topics in kind of I can just mention from the responses you gave me. First is yes, I think it's a bit too fast paced for the people from like the generation that you were born on, like grew up, because I think during those times games ran so like competitive and fast paced, and it was beautiful single player adventure experiences. I mean, it was the same for me. Like I don't think we're that far from, we don't have that much of an age gap. For example, for me, I can't just play battle royals because they're too fast paced for me as well. And like I think the bar keeps getting higher. Like I also kind of feel old when I see new games right now, honestly. They're like the games I play are usually just chill games, like factory management games. Do you know Satisfactory or Factorio? I played those. I love those.
Okay.
I don't know if you played those, or sometimes I used to play Minecraft a lot because it was just chill. You could just focus on building stuff. And I think I'm getting old as well.
It's just in computer games as well. I love story-driven games.
Exactly.
So I grew up with stuff like Monkey Island, Days of the Tentacle, Indiana Jones, all Lucas Arts adventures. Those were awesome, and I really love story in a game. And
oh my God,
I do play newer games as well. I played Senua's Sacrifice, Hellblade, I think it's called. It was an awesome game, 3D, and you have to fight and stuff like that. All fine, but it really had a great story. So it's something I really dig into, and that's something you miss out on these competitive games.
I mean, competitive games are fine, but I think personally, like I myself, like as a kid, and I think if I one day have a kid of my own, I would give them like single player like RPG games to play, honestly, because they're actually character. They'll help you with figuring out a lot of stuff, like they're kind of character building for yourself as well. You learn a lot from them. I know it might sound like stupid to some people, but I genuinely believe it, because for me, for example, for 12-year-old rum teen when I was 12, Fallout New Vegas was, and it still is, one of my dearest games I've ever played in my entire life. I had so much fun with it because it was a story driven, it was dialogues. In my 12-year-old brain, I was like, maybe I could negotiate with him. Then there was a dialogue box that you could negotiate with the guy. Or sometimes when I didn't like someone, I would just shoot their head. And it was actually like these type of games where your consequences matter and it's an open world. I love them. And there's like so many places to explain. But now games are just, everything is just getting so bastardized. It's all about money. If it doesn't, amazing franchise like from Prince of Persia by Ubisoft got canceled, and instead Assassin's Creed came in place. Not saying that Assassin's Creed were bad games, they were great games, I love them, but the reason it got canceled because it wasn't too profitable, but I'm sure even if the devs try to just work on improving the IP, they could have literally I think improved like even the sales of it. But yeah, I mean, things are just moving towards money as fast as possible, unfortunately, especially when there was this video of behind the scenes of making Max Payne on YouTube, and I read the comments, and there were some really interesting insights. One of them was like, and I even screenshotted that comment and made it on my Instagram stories, was basically saying, back in the day, like in early, especially early 2000s or late 90s, games were about a bunch of passionate dudes just wanting to make, not dudes, yeah. I mean, mostly yeah, it's guys in the industry, but now it's more, women involved, which is great. But basically, I'm just paraphrasing the comment, all right?
Yeah, it's fine.
Basically, it was a bunch of dudes passionate about something, an idea, and they were just making with love. Like it was, of course, money incentives, but it wasn't that much, that they were gonna make a single expansion, just like make a bunch of content as DLCs so that they can leech off more money from people.
Yeah,
Like, dude,
totally.
some extra content on the games we used to do, like those hard tasks and achievements to get them, not pay like $13 to get it.
Yeah.
That, God, man, like it's kind of hard to see this kind of stuff like art getting so bastardized, especially with the whole NFT thing. I mean, that's a whole other topic. I don't want to whole other rabbit hole I don't want to get into. Recently, I saw a 2-hour video by someone, which basically it has now 4 million views right now, explained everything about it perfectly.
Okay.
Basically, it's titled NFT, The Line Goes Up. NFT, The Line Goes Up. Just search that on YouTube and you'll see it. It's a 2-hour video.
Okay.
And everything is just moving towards money. But in the end, I believe like this is a phase. I believe it's not going to last long. It doesn't. It's just going to be a short cash grab scheme by companies to get more money out of people. But in the end, I think those companies who make passionate like products with love and just genuine care, I think they will win in the end. And
Yeah,
I know it might sound cheesy, but I think it's true. It's not just in games and everything.
I think it's totally clear. So you can see it's like they have this system that you buy stuff, in-game stuff, and then they make a lot of money. That's fine for them, okay. But at one point, the player realizes, okay, what I do here makes totally no sense. So I'm not entertained anymore. I'm just doing the same stuff over and over again to unlock another box of some kind. I don't know what. So that's really, and there's today as well, that's the chance for the indie studios that really have a project they love and they put so much energy in it, and they have the possibility through Kickstarter, through other crowdfunding platforms to realize their dream and share it with the community that loves the product as well. So that's a whole different approach, and it's so nice that it's possible, and that there's still the guys out there or women who are just passionate about stuff and going their own way. So that's great.
Yeah, exactly. And what are some of your favorite games like, in 2000s? I was just wondering.
Let me think on that. I totally love the Life is Strange series, those games. Life is Strange 2. Then there was last year, I think it was Tell Me Why, story of two siblings. One of the siblings was a transgender and they went back home and there was this big mystery about their mother and stuff. And they play more like an interactive movie. So totally story driven and an awesome art style as well. So those were great. And for two years ago, there was Detroit Becoming Human. That's a game I totally loved. So yeah, basically all the story-driven games, they are just awesome. And I even tried some RPGs like Pathfinder, for example. But it's so freaking huge, so I don't really find the time to play it a lot.
All right, and we talked about some of your favorite games, but now I want to ask you this: who are your favorite artists and designers that have inspired you the most?
I think that's really, it's shifting all the time. So when I recall when I was younger, there was this moment I discovered Hellboy, the comics, for the first time, and I totally was into Mike Mignola for a while because I really loved the art style and the way to play with light and shadow. And I even had a phase where I drew a lot of black and white stuff with a little of woodcut style to it. So then there was Stéphane Tartelin, is a French illustrator, really awesome as well. That was a phase. Then nowadays I totally love Bobby Chu, but more because of his wisdom and the way he talks and motivates and his general spirit. So that's definitely someone. Loish, awesome. So there are a lot, and I don't really have one style that I adore. It's just I love a lot of art and a lot of artists. And nowadays with Instagram, you can find in a few seconds, you can find 1,000 artists you really like. So that's really great as well. And I think stuff like going to events or doing these courses like Kofi or Fosu, for example, I didn't know that he existed before. I just wanted to do more character design. So I found him on Brainstorm School, and I had the chance to just hang out with him, to talk, to draw together during that course. That was pretty cool. So he's one of the good guys as well, definitely. So there are plenty.
All right. And what are you working on right now that you can tell us about? I mean, what kind of project is it? I mean, of course, if there's no NDA involved, you can share with us.
Yeah. As I explained earlier, I'm focusing really on character design these days, though that's more like a private project doing these courses. Then this year, there's going to be another children's book. That's always like 1 to 2 month work going into those. And I really should start working on the comic again, to be honest. But the day has only so much time, and it's really hard to fit it all together, to be honest. But yeah, I really love working on my own stuff, own personal projects. And it's great that I have the opportunity to do this and to have the time for those. So I had this little comic series I did with my girlfriend together. Like we were little snippets of our own life in 4-panel comics. So we did this a while. They came out weekly, and we had a long pause because we moved to Ludwigsburg and stuff like that. So I think we'll start these again. So there's definitely something coming to be looking forward to, I would say.
All right. And what area beside the area you're working right now would you be interested to explore and learn in the future? Like, I mean, it could be something completely non-arts related, by the way.
Come again? Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. What area beside the area you're working on right now would you be interested to explore and learn in the future? It could be something completely non-arts related, by the way.
Okay. I think I really would like to work as a character designer, because now it's more like learning for me and doing character design for my own projects. I think I really would love to find work in that field. Another thing I really liked to enjoy is stop motion art. So my girlfriend, she's at the movie university now, and in 2020, she had this project, like a stop motion movie, which I had the opportunity to make the characters and model the heads of the little characters and stuff like that. It was really, really fun. And it was so great to see this come alive. And you think of this puppets, they are like this big, and suddenly you make a movie and they are walking and talking and stuff like that. That's pretty cool. So maybe character design for stop motion would be an awesome thing.
All right. And, well, we've reached the final section of the podcast and question of the podcast, which is called Final Words. Let me explain. For right now, imagine you have a window of time, a window of opportunity of time to, in that limited amount of time, to anyone who's listening to this podcast in the future, at any point in the future, doesn't matter, from yourself as a human to another human being. In that situation, what do you have to say? It could be anything. Freestyle, let's go.
I think from a human standpoint, I really would say be kind, just be a nice human being. Don't be like a troll on the internet and be full of hate. Just try to be kind and nice, and develop the perspectives so that you can see everything from a good standpoint and see the good in things. And I think that's very important, because everything comes back to you, and there's always you don't know if you're like an ass to someone and suddenly the next day he has a job and he does not think of you, stuff like that. So but besides that, it's always nice to be a good person. And from the art perspective, I would totally say study the fundamentals, because if not, they're coming to bite you in the ass. It's definitely something, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming by. And I mean, as I said and I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, for contacts, I think your Instagram is fine, right?
Come again?
For contacts, I think your Instagram is fine. I mean, if there's someone had a question or anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll link your Instagram in the captions as always, and also your
That's
Etsy
great.
shop. Folks, don't forget to check it out. Amazing stuff. Even for Turkey, the place I live, the prices seem pretty super good. Like postcards are in 33 Turkish liras. I think 35 I checked, which is I think in euros. Actually, the Turkish economy is so bad that in euros, I think it will be 2.5 euros or something.
Yeah.
The postcards here.
Yeah.
No, then I don't think Etsy converts the currencies out. Those are actually, then if those are the real prices, then it's even more affordable in Europe. Yeah, honestly. Yeah, I don't think
I think it's 2 euros in.
No, then, but still, even in Turkey, that's good.
All right.
Yeah, even Turkey, that's good. I just want to mention that because a lot of websites like convert the currency based on like the country, like Steam, and a lot of platforms, Udemy or stuff like that. I thought it was the same, but it's still super good price, honestly. And well, thank you anyone who tuned in and listened to this episode. I hope you all had a fantastic day. And as always, take care everyone. See you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.